Diverging paths. Julian woke up at 6 a.m. He looked over at his partner, Alex, who was sprawled across the bed, a tangle of sheets and hair. With a slight sigh, Julian slipped out of bed and walked to his home office. He glanced at the collection of books lining the shelves, a reflection of his obsession with knowledge. Julian then arranged his tie and began his routine of rehearsing the day's presentation while trying to shake off the remnants of sleep. The rhythmic ticking of a nearby clock filled the silence, marking time as he mentally rehearsed key phrases: strategy, strategy, strategize, strategize. On the other side of the city, in a modest apartment, Ryan's mind jolted from a dream-filled haze to the reality of a hangover. As he surveyed his room, adorned with various local artwork, his eye caught the vibrant colors of an abstract piece reminiscent of a chaotic cityscape. It reminded him of the swirling streets buzzing with energy and noise. Suddenly, the realization hit him: his job interview. Ryan leapt up, clutching a towel and a pair of shorts, but the bathroom door was locked. He pounded on it, calling out, "Hurry up, Leo!" Sharing an apartment had its drawbacks. Sharing, it all meant sharing. As Julian toasted a piece of artisan bread, he spread homemade avocado and sprinkled it with chili flakes. In the background, jazz played softly, wrapping the breakfast routine in a warm ambience. His partner Alex entered, a sleepy smile on his face, searching for a hint of connection in Julian's focused gaze. But Julian was preoccupied, analyzing market trends while tapping his fingers to the music. After a moment of distraction, he offered a brief smile, but it felt fleeting and hollow. Without time for breakfast, Ryan poured himself a generous cup of coffee and nervously crushed a half-finished cigarette into the ashtray. The years of late nights spent performing at open mic nights had trained his stomach to bear the strain of hunger. His roommate Leo sensed the tension radiating from Ryan as he tried to lighten the mood. "Hey man, interviews are just conversations. Just show them you're confident and ready to take on challenges, right?" Ryan shot a glance at him, filled with doubt. "Do you really think that's enough?" As Alex adjusted his scarf before leaving the house, he embraced Julian, feeling the contrast between Alex's cozy sweater and Julian's sharp blazer. Something seemed different today, a sense of anticipation in the air. As Julian unconsciously fiddled with a small token from his keychain, a heart-shaped charm, Ryan, on the other side of town, stood at the bus stop, flicking his lighter as he watched the cars zoom by. "You can do this. Just breathe," he murmured to himself. If he could charm the crowd at the bar the night before with his rendition of a soulful ballad, he could win over any panel of interviewers. Fate entwined their paths as Julian stood on one side of the street and Ryan on the other, waiting for the light to change. In an impulsive moment, Julian glanced across and spotted a young man in a wrinkled shirt with tousled hair. Ryan's presence seemed to pull at something deep within Julian. A pulse of recognition quickened his heart, but Julian brushed off the feeling. Meanwhile, Ryan noticed a man in a neat suit trying to act casual, his eyes flickering. He chuckled quietly at the older man's bashfulness. As the light turned green, both men stepped off the curb, their gazes locking in a fleeting moment. Unbeknownst to them, an electric connection simmered as they approached each other. Their souls seemed to hum a shared melody, echoing unspoken feelings. "There's something about you, I've known you from somewhere before. A connection that feels ancient, perhaps from another life. We were like two rivers flowing together, together, we made art out of chaos. But life insists on change, life's complexities can twist our paths." A wave of confusion washed over them, the intensity of their recognition was overwhelming. They crossed the street and halted, glancing back just as they stepped onto the sidewalk. The thoughts raced: "I can't. I have commitments, I wish I could, but I have this interview. Not now, maybe another time." Julian delivered a mediocre presentation, his mind tangled in distractions. Ryan left the interview feeling defeated, fearing he couldn't impress anyone. Julian returned to the street corner time and time again, hoping to see the young man. After weeks of searching and finding nothing, he made a decision. He packed a small bag and left his life behind, stepping onto a bus that would take him beyond the horizon painted with twilight. When Leo returned home, he found the apartment empty. Among the scattered items on Julian's desk, he discovered a heartfelt letter. As he read it, tears streamed down his face. In that moment, everything fell into place. The pieces of Julian's life suddenly made sense. Meanwhile, one day Ryan decided to buy a timepiece, a clock, something that ticked rhythmically. Unsure why he felt drawn to it, he placed it on his desk, feeling oddly comforted. He set it in motion, letting it mark the passing seconds, hoping time would eventually lead him to the connection he so deeply craved. As the days turned into weeks, both Julian and Ryan settled into their new realities. Julian found himself in a small coastal town, an ocean of blue stretching out before him. It was a stark contrast from the bustling city life he had left behind. The air was filled with salt and the sound of waves crashing against the rocks resonated like a distant heartbeat. Julian explored local galleries, immersing himself in the art scene, hoping to find solace in the creativity surrounding him. One evening, while perusing an art fair, he stumbled upon a stunning painting that caught his eye. It was an abstract piece, swirls of deep blues and vibrant greens evoking the sense of flowing water. A warmth spread through Julian as he read the small plaque next to it, Tides of Connection by Ryan Rivers. He felt a jolt of recognition, and butterflies swirled in his stomach. Could this be the Ryan he had met at the crossing? Something in him urged him to find out. Across town, Ryan was coming into his own as well. The rejection from his last interview had driven him to channel his frustrations into his art. He had dedicated his days to painting, pouring his heart into canvases that depicted his innermost feelings. Suddenly, he was known in the local art scene, receiving recognition for his unique style and emotional depth. He remained unaware that the man who had stirred a deep echo in his heart just weeks earlier was also seeking him. Meanwhile, Julian visited art galleries and cafes, soaking in the new atmosphere and meeting kindred spirits along the way. He resonated with the creative community, but he still felt a lingering emptiness, a sense that something or someone was missing. One rainy afternoon, he walked into a quaint coffee shop that showcased local artists' work, including Ryan's. As he sipped on an expertly prepared latte, he found his thoughts drifting back to that brief moment they shared on the street. Ryan, too, wandered into that same coffee shop, his mind slightly foggy with deadlines. As he entered, an almost magnetic pull led his gaze to the wall where his own artwork hung. Lost in thought, he took a seat near the window, absent-mindedly sketching ideas for his next piece, a tapestry of emotions waiting to be unleashed. Suddenly, Julian stepped into the warmth of the shop, and their eyes met across the room, a spark igniting in the air. Time slowed as they recognized each other. Ryan's heart raced, memories flooding back, the shared glance, the electric connection on the street. "Julian?" Ryan exclaimed, standing abruptly, his hands trembling slightly, paint smearing across the edge of his notebook. "Ryan?" Julian breathed, a smile breaking across his face as he stepped nearer. The world around them blurred momentarily, as if the universe had conspired to bring them back together. "I can't believe it's really you." "It's been a while," Ryan stammered, both nervous and relieved. "Yeah, ever since that day I've thought about you, about us," Julian replied, his heart racing. "I saw your painting at the fair. You're incredibly talented." "Thanks," Ryan said, an inviting warmth blooming in his chest. They moved closer, the atmosphere almost electric. "I felt like you were the first person to truly see me, even for that brief moment. I think I needed that." They found a table in the corner, laughter and conversation flowing effortlessly between them as the afternoon stretched into evening. They spoke about their lives, their decisions to break away from the routines that had kept them stagnant. The reminiscence of that fateful day made them both acutely aware of the bond that had formed despite the distance and time apart. After a few hours of deep discussions and laughter, they wandered out into the cool evening air, the vibrant sunset painting the sky in warm hues. Ryan pulled out his sketchbook. "Would you mind if I drew you? Just to capture this moment?" Julian smiled and nodded, feeling a comforting warmth spread through him. "I'd be honored." As Ryan sketched, Julian observed the rhythm of his movements, the way the pencil danced across the page. It was a simple act, but it held a world of meaning. Each stroke seemed to echo the unspoken feelings they had both carried, the yearning, the connection, the undeniable chemistry. The sun dipped below the horizon, and Ryan finished the sketch, revealing a soft yet dynamic representation of Julian, eyes alight with hope and possibility. "Wow," Ryan breathed, "this is amazing. You look as if you're about to embrace the next chapter of your life. Because I might just be, Julian replied, his heart thrumming with excitement. I think I'm done running. I want to honestly see where this connection takes us. Me too, Ryan replied, a soft smile settling on his lips. No more detours. Let's simply explore what's here. With that unspoken pact between them, they both knew they were poised to embark on a new journey, one that intertwined their dreams, art, and what could be a meaningful relationship. They wandered the streets, laughter echoing like a promise, hands brushing against each other, a preview of intimacy yet to unfold. As they strolled under twinkling streetlights, Julian felt a weight lift off his shoulders, as if he had finally found what he had been searching for all along. The feeling of belonging washed over him, intertwined with the glimmer of hope that sometimes, life leads you back to the places where your heart truly belongs. As the evening deepened, Julian and Ryan meandered through the quaint streets, their conversation flowing as freely as the ocean tide. Julian learned that Ryan had grown up in the same city they had momentarily crossed paths in, but turned to art as a means of escape from the demands of a conventional life. He would often find inspiration in the textures and emotions of the world around him, using his brush to capture fleeting moments. I used to feel so lost, but when I paint, it's like I can finally breathe. It's cathartic, Ryan shared, his eyes sparkling with passion. What about you? What drives your ambition? Julian paused, pondering the question. I've always had a fascination with finance, but lately, I've wondered if it truly fulfills me. Meeting you, it made me realize that life isn't just about the numbers, it's about the connections we make. Ryan nodded, recognizing the weight of Julian's words. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day grind and forget what truly matters. As they walked, the comfort between them deepened, a silent understanding blossoming into something more. Ryan found himself stealing glances at Julian, captivated by the way the moonlight danced in his eyes, illuminating the hopes and dreams that lay within. So what's next for you, Julian? Ryan asked, curiosity lacing his voice. Julian smiled, the flicker of possibility igniting his spirit. I'm still figuring things out, but I've thought about pursuing art, finding a way to blend my analytical mind with creativity. Maybe I could contribute to the art community in some way. Ryan's eyes widened in excitement. That's an amazing idea. We need more people who can see art through both a creative and a critical lens. You could really inspire others. Encouraged by Ryan's enthusiasm, Julian felt invigorated by the idea. As they rounded a corner, they stumbled upon an open-air market, colorful stalls glowing under fairy lights. The sense of exotic spices and fresh produce filled the air, enticing them to explore. Let's check it out, Ryan suggested, his eyes gleaming with childlike curiosity. They wandered from stall to stall, sampling local delicacies and chatting with vendors. They paused at a booth selling handmade jewelry, and Ryan picked up a delicate bracelet adorned with a silver anchor. This reminds me of the ocean, he said, beaming. It symbolizes hope and stability. Funny you say that, Julian replied. Lately, I feel like my life is slowly finding its anchor. I've been seeking something steady. Their eyes locked, and both felt an intentionality in that moment. Ryan turned to meet Julian's gaze, his heart racing as he took a step closer. And I'm grateful that you're here, like a lighthouse in the fog. I'm ready for whatever comes next. The night air was thick with potential as they turned to leave the market, hands brushing as they walked side by side. It was a simple gesture, yet it sent a thrill through Julian. They shared small laughs and stories, weaving their lives together, a quilt being stitched in real time, each thread a memory waiting to be made. After they left the market, curiosity led them to a small art gallery nearby. The spacious room was filled with colorful canvases and eclectic sculptures, each piece narrating a unique story. As they wandered through the gallery, Julian found himself drawn to a particular painting, a swirling mass of blues and greens, echoing the essence of the artwork he'd first seen at the fair. Look at this, Ryan said, standing in awe before the painting. It's almost as if the artist captured the feeling of water and motion perfectly. It's beautiful, Julian agreed, but as he examined the plaque beside the painting, he froze. Wait a second, this was painted by Leo Hartman. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Do you know him? Julian hesitated, memories flooding back. He's my former roommate. I left him everything after I moved, including my sketchbook. Understanding dawned on Ryan. You left because of fleeting feelings. I wasn't being true to myself, Julian admitted, his voice quiet. Leo was a great friend, but I had to discover who I really am. That must have been tough, Ryan said softly. But now you're here, in a place where you can be genuine. Julian nodded, inspired by Ryan's unwavering support. As they continued to explore the gallery, their shared passion for art intertwined with their individual journeys. They discussed ideas for future projects, igniting sparks of ambition within one another. Eventually, the night began to wane, and they stepped out into the cool air, a light mist settling over the streets. Ryan turned to Julian, tilting his head slightly. You know, this feels different. I've never connected with anyone like this before. Me neither, Julian replied, his heart swelling. I feel more like myself around you. I'm grateful for our chance encounter. Me too, Ryan said softly, his eyes shining under the streetlights. Leaning in, they shared a tentative moment together, their breath mingling before a courageous smile bloomed across Ryan's face. As if drawn together by an undeniable force, their hands intertwined, fingers interlocking like the brushstrokes on a canvas. In that instant, they both realized that the journey ahead might hold the promise of love, a new chapter that began in vulnerability and exploration. I want to explore more of this world with you, Julian said, a newfound determination in his voice. Then let's embrace it, Ryan replied, squeezing Julian's hand lightly. No more running from what we want. Under the canopy of stars above and bright city lights, they took their first steps into a future laden with possibilities, ready to create a masterpiece of their journey together. It was a beginning laced with hope, adventure, and a beacon of understanding that love could indeed be a journey, a shared art form between two souls once apparently distant but now irresistibly intertwined.